Mafani Conversations. As you know that we are live on Facebook. The page is Putco Mafani Conversations. And also we're live on YouTube. We'd love to welcome you wherever you are. Any of the 9 provinces in South Africa or in the Southern Africa, guess what? From anywhere in the continent, the great continent of Africa. And also, overseas, whether you're watching us in Europe or in the United States of America or in Asia, wherever, or in North America, wherever you are, you could be, we'd love to welcome you. Welcome to Putco Mafani Conversations on Thursdays. Our feature is leadership, and that's where we invite great leaders in the country and have a conversation with. Well, you will remember that last week, episode 1, we had the premier of the Eastern Cape Province, Oscar Mabuyane. We were talking about a whole lot of things from the provincial development plan of our government, the Vision 2030, and how COVID-19 is affecting the rhythm to his government realizing the provincial development plan. Well, as we also told you, and you might have noticed in our poster campaign, that our guest today is none other than former. There are a lot of titles I could use to introduce this great leader that we have in our studios today. The former PSL referee, internationally acclaimed FIFA award-winning referee, the former general manager of the Premier Soccer League, an entrepreneur, a social justice, a soldier and fighter and activist of social issues, and an owner also of a media platform. He has so many titles, and I think he deserves to be on the platform today. And that's we have a conversation with him. His name is Ace Andile, Ace Ncobo. Madonna, let me welcome you to Putco Mafani Conversations. What a pleasure, man. Thanks for agreeing.
Well, thank you so much, and congratulations on having what I think is going to grow into one of the most sought after platforms for people who want to listen to real conversations about real issues, life-changing stories, and things that can really make an impact on the lives of the people out there. Congratulations on starting this, and thank you for having me as one of your first guests on Putco Mafani Conversations.
Well, thanks, Ace. Well, we do have an informal payoff line that says discovering the undiscovered. It is our intention also to unearth those elements of the untold truth so that people are free to say on this platform, because there's not a government that owns the platform. There's not a structure in business, in football, in politics that owns the platform. It belongs to the people. It is the brainchild of Putco Mafani, but it belongs to the people, and the people they deserve also to hear anything and everything they haven't heard about this particular leader that we are hosting today. Another warm welcome. Don't forget then to join us perhaps with your comments on Facebook so that we can see whether you are with us today. I think let's start the journey commemorating and celebrating the great leadership that we have come to know from Ace Ncobo. And anybody that probably only knows now about Ace would probably be amazed as to what is it that we're really celebrating about Ace Ncobo. And in answering that question, probably you'd love to take us on your journey, particularly your journey as a referee, because it is through being a match official that the entire South Africa, the entire Africa, and the world got to know about Ace Ncobo. Who's Ace Ncobo? Particularly in reference, take us through, Kabao, in reference to your sparkling, well-decorated refereeing career.
Look, I think, Putco, one of the first things I need to say is that I don't believe in the notion of an individual that must be celebrated. I don't believe that there's anything about me as an individual that needs to be celebrated. What I do believe in is the concept of celebrating the human spirit that conquers over adversity. I believe in celebrating the human story of a young rural boy who had never seen his face on a TV set, who has never had his name written on any newspaper, who has never boarded a plane, who has never crossed the borders of this country while legally carrying a passport until football made that possible. A young boy from the village of Ngadu who grew up in abject poverty. Those who know me when I was still a young boy will tell you my story a lot better, because if I start talking about those things, we might digress from what we planned for the show. But they'll tell you that we grew up in a village that was one of the most poverty stricken villages in the country. Obviously, we couldn't afford to go to any of the so called better schools. So we attended the local junior secondary school. Coincidentally, that school, the first ever school in my village, was built 2 years after I was born. So for 2 years, even though obviously I wouldn't have attended school at that age, but for 2 years of my life, there was no school in my village. And that goes without saying that most of those who were born before me, and some of those that formed part of our age cohort, never attended school. They never set foot at school because there was no school to attend. We were the lucky ones that when we reached the school going age, we were able to walk to school. Um, but unfortunately, as we went through the classes uh, up to standard 6, what they call in today's terms grade 8, that's as far as the school went. So most of those that I grew up with, even those that stayed the distance, and there aren't many, most of my age mates would drop off in standard 3, standard 4. Very few of us that actually reached standard 6. But then that was it. Most of those that reached standard 6 had nowhere else to go because there was no school within walking distance that they could attend, into standard 7. So most of them would just opt to go to the mines. Others would stay around and look after cattle and all those things. So I was one of the lucky few that was able to go beyond standard 6. But that's where I come from. And whenever we talk about these stories, whenever I talk about my journey in refereeing and my rise to stardom in the refereeing fraternity, I want to base that against that background. It is not my journey. It is a story of all young Black people who are born into poverty, have to contend with all the troubles that poverty brings into your life. But then once in a while, somebody breaks away from the bondage of hardship. Somebody breaks those chains of poverty and says, I'm going to go out there and deal with the world. But then what's more important is, to what extent do you then use your story as an inspiration for others to see that no matter what background you come from, your future cannot be dictated by that background.
And I wanted to come in right there because a whole lot of us, and without attempting to give one's age away, but a whole lot of boys of the 60s and all of that, and boys of the 70s you find that there is some kind of a conquering spirit that made them defy the odds and defy the shackles of poverty. What spirit and what can you recall, whether it lied along the lines of taking advantage of some shoulders of someone to ride on, or but how did Ace get this spirit, the conquering spirit, from Enqadu where poverty is written on your windscreen as you drive around?
Look, I think I must give credit to my parents. My parents went through the ups and downs of life. There were times when both of them were employed, and those times there was less hardship. There were times when only one of the parents was employed, and there was therefore a 50% of the hardship. There was an elongated period when both of them were not working. And that's the time during my formative years, when you started to see that, in fact, we are a struggling family. You're starting to deconstruct, things that you took for granted at a younger age, you know. Um, but what I learned from them was that poverty is temporary, hardship is temporary, that you have actually two choices in life: that you accept the fact that you are born into poverty, that your parents were poor, that your grandparents and your great grandparents were even poorer. So your choice would be, do I do something about this state of poverty, or do I just accept the fact that this is a family trajectory? Most often you find that those that take the option of breaking the shackles of poverty, even if they don't themselves get wealthy, but they improve their lot, they are able to then go back and extricate their own families from poverty. So I think the spirit that my parents imbued us with, that this thing is temporary. Don't accept it as what you will always experience in life. You must always wake up in the morning, find something to do, especially skills using your hands. That's why my hands keep moving all the time when I talk, because um, we we were we were indoctrinated with this spirit that as long as you have your two hands, learn a skill.
Find something to do.
That's why I know that Chawe, you're one of the people that are very close to me, that know quite a lot about me, but you don't know that Ace Nobo is a qualified motor mechanic. You don't know that. This is the first time you are hearing.
Wow.
This is the first time that you
Wow.
perhaps hear that one of the favorite subjects besides mathematics that I taught when I later became a teacher was motor mechanics. And the practical side of it, we worked with very young students on a project where we built a convertible from scratch. The first ever convertible in this area was built by students who were doing Standard 7. So those are the things, the stories that we can tell. I build my own houses. I do my own designs. You give me plumbing, you give me woodworking, electrical work, you give me a vehicle to fix. You give me architecture and ask me to draw building plans. I can do all of that because when we grew up, we never knew which direction and then which career we would take. But one thing for sure that we understood was that you must be able to use your hand. That's why I'm
Yep.
sure you saw on my Facebook that I grow crops. That's one of the things that I do, because we grew up buying from the shop only those things that we couldn't grow in our garden. So
Okay,
we grew vegetables.
and I think this is the legacy of. Um, I love the fact that out of lemon, people can make lemonade. Out of the experiences of poverty, people can learn skills. And what Ace Ncobo is saying today, born in poverty, but not born for poverty. Finding something to do with your hands. Now, the revelation about you and motor mechanics, it rocks me. And I'm thinking, at some stage, man, I needed a motor mechanic and I should have phoned you. And I should have phoned you. Okay, now fast forward a little bit. Fast forward a little bit, Kubevu. Um, and I know that you went through teaching. Most of us went through teaching. And so the viewer that is watching here today, actually, they are listening and watching teachers having a conversation. Two teachers having a conversation. Someday we will talk about teaching being a fundamental, good foundation for many other careers that can be born from teachers. But fast forward to a time when you then became a top PSL referee. How does this happen? And I will tell you why I'm asking this question, because not only you became a referee, but you became a top FIFA accredited referee. Just take us through that transition in life.
Yeah, I get this question quite a lot. And, the natural progression for referees would be to start in refereeing in the lower divisions, get promoted to the next division, get promoted to the next division, and then ultimately the Glad Africa Championship, the National First Division, and then if you're good enough there, you can then get appointed to the Premiership matches. And if you're good enough there, you then get drafted onto the CAF and FIFA panels. The funniest part, Chow, with me is that before I became a PSL referee, I was not a referee. I was not a referee. I was a player. People that grew up with me during that period will tell you that I could have made it into the PSL as a player. When I received my first appointment to go and referee a match, it clashed with my first match for the then Blackburn Rovers that had just signed me. They were playing in the National First Division. They had signed me as a player, and then I was called up to go and referee. So I had a choice to go into professional football either as a player or as a referee.
Wow.
Now, I chose refereeing, and we'll talk about why I had to choose refereeing. When you are a referee, you stand on the football pitch. You are the only one inside there. The assistant referees and the fourth official are outside. So I guess from a personal branding point of view, I saw it as an opportunity that, okay, I want to brand myself, and refereeing gives me that platform to brand myself. Whereas as part of a team of 11, you are part of a group. There's no personal branding there. But let me tell you how I got to become a referee, even though I was never a referee before. I would referee football matches involving schools because that was part of my duties as an educator involved in sport. That when the schools play against each other, an educator from one of the schools would referee the match. So that was as far as I went in terms of refereeing. And then I was invited to attend a workshop of referees. by Mr. Dumisani Nokenke, who was the head of referees in our area then.
Yes, yes.
I'm sure you know him, Urola. He invited me to this workshop, and I was very reluctant to attend it because I said to him, no, I'm not a referee. That thing is for referees. I don't know, you just come and learn more about the laws of the game. So I attended the refereeing workshop conducted by the late Dada Uzak Musehle, one of the topmost lecturers on the laws of the game in the world at that time. So I attended that workshop, and to cut a long story short, when the time came for them to write the tests, I stepped out of the class and but this is a test for referees. I'm not a referee, so I don't need to write the test. And Dada Musehle said to me, "You've attended the workshop for 3 days. You might as well take the test." So I took the test, scored 98% in the test, and at the end of the workshop, the referees had to choose one referee to referee a match. Remember the KFC back then still sponsored school sport, school
Yes,
football.
yes,
So it
yes.
was a cup final in the area involving 2 schools in the KFC Cup. And to my surprise, the referees in the room appointed me to referee that match. And despite my protestations to say, but this is your thing, why involve me? I said, no, we want you because Museche said the practical mark of whoever we appoint will be the practical mark for all of us, because that will be a representative mark. So I went in there, did the game for 90 minutes, one school won. And as I was walking out of the pitch, this old man came to me and he said, and listen to this, Putco, and your viewers. He said to me, "Where have you been? You are PSL material." I didn't take note of this until the very next week. I received a call appointing me to a PSL match. So that's why I'm saying, before I became a PSL referee, I was not even a referee. So that's how it went. And I need to tell the story that when I arrived there at the pre-match, the very first pre-match seminar that I attended, back then there were very few referees from outside Gauteng. The handful of them, less than 5, were from Cape Town and Durban and Bloemfontein, less than 5. Almost all the referees came from Gauteng. And they looked me in the face and told me, you'll never make the cut here. That made me angry. It made me recall my background. I said, I'm going to show you. And I said,
was there a Xhosa element in this remark? Eastern Cape, Xhosa, you won't make it.
Yeah, must last speak eGauteng into asingabaqhaga sisibharu zase Eastern Cape, we can never be good at anything. Yeah. But in response to them, I asked them 2 questions. I said, number 1, how long does it take for a new referee to be the referee of the season? So, oh, you're already thinking of that. Forget that. You will perhaps start getting a nomination in your 10th year on the panel. But since you'll never reach 10 years, so forget about that. I said, okay, so it takes 10 years for one to be nominated and perhaps even win referee of the season. How long does it take for one to make it onto the FIFA panel? They said currently it's an average of 8 years. Well, it's now a matter of history that in my 2nd season, I was referee of the season. In my 3rd season, I made it onto the FIFA panel of referees. So whilst they said I will have to wait for 10 years before I could win referee of the season, in my 2nd season, I was referee of the season. And I went on to win 3 more times. So I've won referee of the season 4 times. And by the 3rd season, I was already on the FIFA panel.
I need to come in there because these conversations when we hosting a leader of the caliber of Ace Ncobo, part of our intention is to inspire and motivate, particularly people that are in the peripherals of South Africa who think that if you are from Edujo Ngadu, forget about it. You can't make it. It's dense even in Joburg. Even the queue in Joburg is so long of people who want to make it. But I think this conversation is intended to tell you, you who are watching, it doesn't matter where you are, and it doesn't matter who gave birth to you. It doesn't matter your home language, because I remember when I joined Kaiser Chiefs, editors of the Sowetan, editors of the City Press, they said Kaiser has made a big mistake. This man cannot even speak Sutu. How will he become a PRO for Kaiser Chiefs? Where's to replace a great man like Louis Chakwane? So they kind of wrote me off. But the rest is history, because when you are determined to defy it and take your rightful place in this country, and then the stage is yours. The stage is yours. Well, I just need to remind the viewers, it is now 26 minutes past 5. My host, Ace Ncobo, the FIFA accredited referee of all times. A few messages came here before we move to the next step of the conversation. Umfokamulosa saying, I remember going through Ngadu, Ace Sadlalela Abahlobo Football Club, and somebody said, Putco, how did you feel when Ace would be in charge of a game involving Kaizer Chiefs? and Zola Antoni saying, artisanship is the way to go. And it's great to get this kind of feedback from people. And I must say that, when we would get to the stadium and we just knew that the appointment of referees gave us Ace Ncobo as a referee for our game, one thing that we were sure of, and Gabawo, perhaps I've never told you this, we were sure that the game would be, and the judgments throughout the 90 minutes, because people associate or measure the impact of the referee. They measure it with the results, which is the wrong way to go with it, because the work of the referee is, according to the referee himself, measured with every minute and every move and every judgment he makes on the field of play. So when I would get the information that here are the four officials doing warm up, so Ace Ncobo is our referee, at least I rested on the comfort of knowing that objectivity is key today. There's going to be objectivity. If we get a penalty, it would be because we're deserving. If we don't, it would be because we don't. So just to answer the question that also came in, but I need then to talk about your travel around Africa, your travel around the world, the places that you saw, where your craftsmanship, where your profession of being a top FIFA match official took you around the continent and maybe beyond, and places that you say today, I still pinch myself to say, I've seen these countries. Just a highlight, Kabawa, of your international travel, thanks to refereeing.
Chawa, you remember when I started off, I said, here is this boy from Ngadu who had never boarded a plane before, until football made it possible, refereeing in particular. A boy who had never been on a plane taking him overseas, taking him across the continent of Africa, until football made it possible. And that's why, out of all the things that I'm involved in, I always allow football to take the center stage. You know very well that I'm involved in quite a number of things which I speak very less about. But football has given me things that no other endeavor can ever give me. There are 54 countries on the continent. I've been to every single one of them. There is no country that I have not been because even when we speak about the youngest of them all, South Sudan, when during my referring days there was still just one Sudan. There was no South Sudan. So I can rightly say I've been to every single country on the continent, and I've been to every continent in the world. Football has taken me to literally every continent in the world. There is no other endeavor in any of those that I'm involved in that could have done that for me. We have some really interesting stories from our beloved continent. You know, I can never forget the day I landed on the runway at the height of the civil war in the DRC, and it was an almost an abandoned airport because there was nobody at the airport. We landed on the runway, and as soon as we touched the tarmac, there was a full battalion of soldiers that surrounded the plane. They came to fetch us, just myself and the two assistant referees I traveled with, and it was a crunch game. You know, we were taken to a beautiful hotel, 5-star hotel. There were no guests except just the three of us. I mean, it's a 22-story building. There were just the three of us. And from a distance, you could hear mortar fire. You could hear the distant rattle of rifles, you know. And we had to go and do matches in situations of that nature. The 40,000 seater stadium, when the national team played, accommodated more than 60,000 people. The 40,000 seater, it had more than 60,000 people on the day. And for us on the day, and you know that the political animal in me would have looked more at the social justice angle to what we came to do. Here is a country ravaged by civil war. Here is a nation of people who see football as the only solace that they can have in their lives, as the only moment where all the warring militias would lay down their arms. And on match day, you wouldn't hear a single shot fired. It was an unspoken code amongst all the different warring factions in that civil war that when the national team played, not a single gun would be fired. So we were there as part of the agents of the beautiful game, the agents of social cohesion, the agents of peace, because nothing beats football as a weapon for social cohesion, social justice, and peace. And you know, when we look back at those memories, you realize that you represented your country in such arenas. You represented your village, the people that gave you food when your own family couldn't give you anything. The village that gave you shoes. They may have been torn and having holes and the tips pointing upwards, but they gave you shoes when your family could not buy shoes for you. And they never chased you away when the black three-legged pot was brought inside. When you went to play with the neighbors' kids, not even because you loved their games, but you knew that you wouldn't be chased away when food was dished up into that big round enamel dish. So you would go out there, and that's why we have such fond memories of going out into the continent.
Ncobo is my guest tonight on Putco Mafani Conversations. We're celebrating his illustrious career as a match official, I think more as a football personality in Africa. And Lucas Lucanio says, I'm inspired as I'm listening to Ace and I see this, and Mawande also says, guys, I'm proud of you guys. Well, you better be proud of Ace. Tempting Ngubane says, Ace is a motivation on his own, not only based on intellect, but from succession, building, and leadership. Talent is talent. It just needs a leader with a vision. And I'm getting goosebumps, and that's what he is saying. Okay, so Putco Mafani Conversations hosting, we're having a conversation with Ace Ncobo. You've traveled the entire continent, Kamau. I probably did half of that in my football career. I would never break your record. You've done everything in Africa. And this to me then says that it is no surprise also that you are an award-winning referee, because you've done great things for football around Africa and the world. But there's also the downside of that career, where referees are said to be corrupt, accepting bribery, and all of this. Is bribery and corruption only but a myth that comes from disgruntled bad losers, or is it a reality? Did you have colleagues that were corrupt, that accepted bribes and are tainting a beautiful career, an honorable career, as far as you were concerned?
Well, towards the latter part of my career as a referee, you know, SAFA did something that they had never done before. They asked the referees to nominate somebody from amongst the fraternity to represent them, sort of as a kind of a shop steward in the National Referees Committee. And so I had the honor and the privilege to be the one that was elected by the referees to serve on the National Referees Committee, which is a subcommittee of the National Executive Committee of SAFA. One of the things that we did as part of that committee, when there was an outcry against bribery and corruption in football, Kirsten Matandani was a National Executive Committee member. He was the chairperson of that National Referees Committee. I said in one meeting that I'm tired of hearing people branding referees as corrupt without evidence, as if where there's this corrupt referee, there is no corrupt club official. Because where there's a bribe taker, there is surely a bribe giver. Yeah. So we adopted a resolution at that meeting that we would embark on what we referred to as a Truth and Rehabilitation Commission, our own TRC. And we said, rather than adopting a punitive approach, let's adopt more a remedial approach. Let's rehabilitate. Now, when you want to rehabilitate people, you give them an opportunity to confess their sins. You give them an opportunity to say, you know what, I've been involved in this thing. I've taken bribes, and I'm prepared to clean up my act in order for me to stay on the panel. As a club official, I have given bribes. I am prepared to clean up my act and stay being a club official in football. And so we said, okay, because this is a resolution of the National Referees Committee, we will deal with the referees and we'll sell the idea to both the SAFA executive and the NSL executive that they can do the same with the club officials. And so I was given the task of receiving confidential documents from referees in the form of affidavits. So there were referees indeed that went to the commissioner of oath, whether it be a magistrate or a police station, to sign affidavits, you know, and say, at some stage in my career, I did falter to the temptation of accepting bribes. Now, you must remember those days, for a person like myself, it was more expensive to spend time writing the claim form and issuing an invoice than the amount of money that I was claiming. So for most years, I wouldn't even claim anything because I think per match we're earning 160 rands. You know, so there was an atmosphere that was conducive to club officials inducing favorable decisions from referees using.
Okay, we're going to need to move on. We've got a few other important issues, but just one more question on this issue of referees and were you ever approached by a club official offering you a bribe, and if you refused, what gut would you have and what method would you use to refuse such?
Look, the former owner of a certain club is no longer in football now. He moved out of football. You know, he's somebody that you and I would know very well. I won't mention his name. He came to me, you know, and said, Ace, I respect you so much. And we know that as a referee, we speak amongst ourselves as club owners. We know that you are unapproachable, you're anti-bribery and corruption and all of that. But my club is suffering. It's suffering because I don't give bribes. And now I am playing this decider match. If I lose this match, my club goes down to the lower division. I need this match. I said to him, okay, what are you offering? That look, we usually offer 20,000 rand to the top referees, but because it's you and this is a crunch match, I'm going to offer you 500,000. Now, 500,000 those days was equivalent to 2 million rands today. So I said to him, look, I respect you so much. I understand that you are under pressure. However, I don't accept bribes, even if you were offering 2 million. And I took out a recorder because I had carried a recorder. I said, I have recorded our conversation because there is a task that I want to give you. I can either go to the police, go and report this, or give you an opportunity to do the right thing. I said to him, take this 500,000, double it, make it 1 million, and go and give it as an incentive to your players.
Wow.
And I said to him, I'm going to ask your captain as we walk out onto the field of play, how much the team has been offered as an incentive. If it's anything lower than 1 million rands, I'm not going to start that match. I'm going back to the change room. I'm taking out that recorder and I'm running straight to the nearest police station. So as we walked out, I asked the captain, how much have you been offered as an incentive? And he was so excited, you know, we've been offered 1 million to win this game. And so the players were motivated, and they knew that they had a referee who would give them a fair game, an opportunity to fight to retain their status, and they retained their status. Well, after that match, he sold the club. You know, every time when I meet him, he looks me in the eye and said, you know what, I respect you. You could have chosen to report the matter, but you chose football. And indeed, Putco, I decided to choose football. But I would not have blinked an eye had he not done what I asked him to do.
Exactly. Okay.
So of course, okay. I did write a report, you know, about the approach, and I did make a submission on how I had handled the matter to the authorities at SAFA at that time. I told them this is how I've handled the matter. They supported the approach, and football was the winner at the end of the day.
Wonderful. Well, my guest today, and Asongezwa is short. He says, yo. I think Wotugalanda bela 500,000. Yeah, you took. uthwala izandla enhloko, and uMawande uthi wow. Mawande Boso, uSiyamakhunga says it would be interesting if Ace can confirm on Putco Mafani Conversations if he would take a clarion call to head up and lead the South African Football Association. And Uwanda Yena says, I admire Ace because he was never scared, he was never intimidated, he always stood his ground. Umboy Kamela uthi niyacaca ningotishara nobabini niyamameleka. And Utera Mutiba uti, who was the naughtiest player ever that you've red carded frequently? Xa umbona nje uqonde lo ndimrhalela ngekhadi lo. Maybe we could attend to their questions. Maybe we could attend to Sia's question, because it was going to lead me to the next part of the next segment of the discussion. Maskale Ngalegatera Mutiba, who was the naughtiest player ever that you've ever encountered? And then we will come to Egasiya Makunga, if you would take a call to head the South African Football Association.
No, look, I wouldn't want to single out any player. You know, players on the field of play are like children. And my refereeing style had always been a father figure kind of refereeing style. I would adopt that. You know, as a school principal, you look at these young men and they're like school kids. And you know, I was also at that stage part-time university lecturer. So I looked at them as part of the group of young people that I had an obligation to groom and mentor.
To develop.
So I did my bit during the 90 minutes of football. So I wouldn't want to single out any player. As for the issue about leading SAFA, I think I need to reiterate a statement that I've made so many times, over and over, even during the time when I was dealing with the issues at SAFA. You know, I have said that I harbor zero aspiration to occupy a political office. For me, as an administrator, I believe that, in fact, there shouldn't even be an elected president of SAFA. I don't believe that there should be elections in football at that level. I believe that the best model that we can go for is for clubs at local football association level to elect people to lead them. And then those people can represent the LFA at the regional level. The regional representatives can represent the region at a provincial level. And then you have 9 people representing the 9 provinces at the National Executive Committee level. And then, you know, you have a rotating presidency amongst the provinces. Nobody goes for an election. You know that if it's Eastern Cape's 10, whoever is representing the Eastern Cape in the Executive Committee would then be the president for a year, which is 100% ceremonial figure with football administrators, office-based football administrators who are answerable and accountable to the council would then be in charge of football. You completely depoliticize it. Now, as a person that advocates for that kind of model, I would find myself more assisting on the administrative side of things than on the so-called political side of things. So I don't see myself standing for any elected position, even when we were.
Yeah, just in the interest of.
Just to end that one, Putco, even the so-called contesting Mr. Daniel Jordan at that stage, you remember very well, I said, I've accepted nomination purely to gain the officialdom that a nomination grants you to speak. Otherwise, I have no interest to contest for any position.
Okay, and just in the interest of time, Kabawo, I need us to talk about COVID-19 lockdown, South Africa being in COVID lockdown, alert level 3 currently. And on Sunday, we woke up to the news, and it was flashed everywhere on the Sunday papers, City Press, and other papers, that SAFA says no to PSL in as far as opening and playing during the alert level 3. I want to get your opinion here. If you were still PSL general manager as you were, or better still, if you were holding the reins at SAFA, how would you have handled this? Would you have said yes to PSL? Let us carry on. And if we carried on, three options: do we finish the league, or do we declare it null and void, or do we crown the top one and relegate the bottom one? How would you have handled the COVID-19 situation affecting professional football in South Africa?
Look, the first thing I'd like to say, Putco, is that the lives of participants in football are paramount. They are bigger than the game. Participants in the form of players, coaches, referees, managers, even commentators and members of the media. The lives of the people are paramount. You can never make any decision that exposes people to a viral spread of the disease. However, you've got to balance that against the value of football as what I deemed earlier an agent of social cohesion, an agent that plays a critical role in the psychosocial well-being of the nation. Much as we said we've got to balance the need to protect lives against the need to protect livelihoods when we started to open up the economy. We've got to look at those things. We do have brains in this country. We've got people that are able to come up with protocols that can be used by football such that football can resume and continue to play despite the pandemic rising on the other side in a safe and secure environment. We've seen big leagues resuming and playing in zero spectator conditions. Of course, it's not the same. I saw the Bundesliga now has brought in big speakers into the stadium, so that the players can have a feel of the crowd virtually inside the stadium. We saw the Vietnamese league resumed with full match venues, no social distancing, no mask, nothing, but they have been better able to contain the virus than any other country in the world. So how I would have handled it would be that let's satisfy ourselves that football would not be the platform for a viral spread of the disease. Do we have safety protocols? Can we ensure that players and all the other participants are quarantined for this sufficient period of 14 days before they come back, and only those who, after having been in isolation for 14 days, test negative can then be permitted to take part. And then for now, let's keep fans away because it's not going to be possible to quarantine them. But in terms of the season itself, I would consider it a bit unfair to declare any winner at this stage without having made attempts to salvage the season. I think the 31st of July, which is the FIFA promulgated deadline, is still a long way off. The number of matches that are left can be played in just 3 weeks. So if we still have a period of at least 3 weeks, which is starting from the second week of July, essentially, we can still complete the season. I would start to panic and look at any other option when we no longer have time to complete the season ahead of the 31st of July. But for now, I'd say let's go back to the field of play under a very strict safety protocol. Let's complete the season so that there is nobody who says your club that you love so much has been given a free ride over others. Nobody says there's just a 3 points difference and a match in hand for the club that occupies the second position on the log, and maybe they would have overtaken. We don't want that kind of conversation around football unless we reach a stage where we cannot salvage it anymore, and then we say, okay, let's leave it at that.
That's fair enough. I also do subscribe to the notion, Ace, that um, football is not food parcels. It's not something that you should, even the championship, the trophy is not a food parcel. It's not something that you can just offer. If you do have time, why not play and finish? But Ace, a resource such as yourself, and I know we're running out of time, but a resource such as yourself, Maduna, were you not consulted to advise and guide and provide solutions of this nature? And if you were, then what happened?
Look, I am a member of the football family, Chawa. I make my contributions to football. Some
Well, something has happened there. It does look like we've lost Umaduna. If not, then we'll get him again. But I think we've lost him.
okay.
He's coming back again. Yes,
My bad.
that's right.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
there you are, Maduna.
That is I was
You were
answering the
still
very
saying that
important question.
you were still saying that you made your contribution. You did submit your contribution, and then we're taking it from there.
As a matter of routine, Chawe, as a member of the family, I do make my submissions. Just like I do make submissions to government, either solicited or unsolicited, by clubs, by individuals, by the league itself, by the association, as and when the relations are good. I do make my contribution, and I have made my contribution as to how, from the knowledge of having owned a club, played football, coached football, been a referee, been involved as a general manager on the administration side of things, now in broadcasting and the media side of things. So I'm just about the only person with the honor and privilege of having gone through the entire spectrum of the different elements and facets of the game. So
That's
I'm
right.
able to look at things from all the different facets, and I've been able to make my submission.
Okay, lovely. Okay, we're going to pack that one right there, Maduna, because I need us to have a parting shot along the lines that on this day, 10 years ago, first World Cup match, Spiwa Chabalala scores for Bafana Bafana, 1-0, Bafana Bafana, Mexico, and at FNB Stadium, the World Cup and all that came with the World Cup and the legacies of the World Cup. From, in your opinion, do you think that the buzz that came with the World Cup, the legacy that came with the World Cup, the investment in billions of rands from our government that came with the World Cup, the infrastructural development and everything, are you happy with where we are with our football currently after all of that?
Well, from an infrastructure point of view, I think we did really well as a country. We inherited a huge legacy from an infrastructure point of view. And an infrastructure would not only be the match venues that were used, the upgraded roads, the upgraded airports, upgraded hotels, all of that, the launch of the How train ahead of the World Cup. There's huge legacy aspects that we were left with that we're still benefiting from as a country. In terms of football infrastructure, there are a couple of synthetic pitches that were built from the legacy fund. And we congratulate and commend SAFA for those regions where they were able to construct those pitches. From a football development point of view, I don't think we have much to celebrate dubbed this the World Cup for Africa, not just for Africa. So the idea was that South Africa would directly benefit, and South African football would grow in leaps and bounds such that it would then, from a position of strength, go out to the other countries on the continent and bring them up to that same level. Sadly, we have not been able to achieve that. And that's the saddest part, that from a football development point of view, we have very little to point at and say this is a direct benefit that we were able to glean from the World Cup.
Well, somebody just wrote one of the comments. They said, both of you distinguished gentlemen played your part, contributed in your respective ways to football in South Africa. And I think the parting shot that they wanted was, where is Ace now? What is Ace doing now? How is Ace impacting on the lives of people, particularly in rural areas? Where is he involved now? You know, so that's the kind of parting shot. I noticed that there is an interference and disruption on the line there. Yeah, Ace. Okay, but this is Putco Mafani Conversations, and our esteemed guest today, Andile Ace Ncobo. We are talking football, we're talking his personal career and his career path in football, and also, you know, where he thinks we've done well. I salute Ace. I salute Ace, particularly in the way in which you have handled that particular story about potential bribery and all of that. I really salute you. Maduna, maybe just you close in 30 seconds. What is it that you're doing now, and how does it impact on fellow South Africans, particularly people in disadvantaged areas and rural areas? And then we're going to say good night.
Well, one of the biggest things that I don't usually speak about, that I don't take out into the media space, is the work that I do as a community activist, which is what I live for. You know, I was able to go and do my high school education because the people of my village put together some money to assist my family to take me to high school. And so most of the time I find ways to go back and plow back something from the little that I'm able to do in business.
Okay, and Ace, I must say that I see our time is gone now, and we've had an hour that felt like a minute because it was packed with a lot of information. And I think there are younger people that have learned, there are people that are inspired, there are people that are motivated, there are people that are charged to want to excel and to want to reach the levels that you have personally reached. Thank you so much. Thank you, Maduna, for being with us on the conversations tonight. We are so proud of you. And I speak also as an Eastern Cape young boy from a small town, and to say thank you so much for having flown two flags, that of Ngadu and the flag of the Eastern Cape, around the world. Thank you. We're so proud of you. And we want to wish you all the best in terms of your business ventures and what you set to do as a community social activist. Our guest, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, boys and girls, Ace Ncobo, our guest here on the Conversations, always spot on.
Spot on. Spot on.
Spot on. Thank you, Gabo. Thank you.